So some British millionaires have a request for the country's new prime minister. They want him to raise their taxes. 120 millionaires, in fact, signed an open letter to Andy Burnham. In it, they say, quote, wealth and power has been concentrated in a small group for too long at the cost of our country, its people, our democracy, and our environment. For a better Britain, this has to change. The signatories include former England striker Gary Lineker, actor Simon Pegg, as well as musician and producer Brian Eno. And Brian Eno has worked with many musicians, including David Bowie, Talking Heads, U2, and Coldplay. Some of them would be, their taxes would be at stake here too. But okay, Maestro, thanks for joining us. But really? More taxes? Go ahead, explain yourself.
Well, not everyone resents paying taxes. For people like me, I think I want to live in a good society. I want to live in a place where there aren't very poor people, if possible. I want to live in a society where there aren't obscenely rich people as well. And I think it's absolutely fair that we pay taxes to maintain social infrastructure. That's what concerns me. It's something that has eroded very considerably over the last few years is social infrastructure. People hate each other a lot more than they used to, I think. And I think part of that is because of this ever widening gap between the rich and the poor. There are some very, very, very wealthy people now, as you know, and that is rather at the expense of the other end of the spectrum. There are a lot of very poor people now as well. So it doesn't make much difference, perhaps, what I do individually, but I think if all of the people in my sort of tax bracket and above said we're willing to pay a bit more, that would make a big difference.
When you say a bit more, I mean, British taxes are already quite high, so I'm wondering, in context, what do you see in British society that tells you that things are skewed? I mean, keeping in mind as well that people run businesses, they have tax shelters, there are business deductions. So do you see something inherently unfair in the British tax system?
Well, there are two things, I think. First of all, proportionately, poor people pay a much bigger chunk of their income in tax than rich people do. Even the very richest people, particularly the very richest people, know how not to pay taxes. That's why, London is well known as the money laundering centre of the world. And it's full of people who are very clever at telling you how to avoid taxes. Not necessarily illegally, but sometimes illegally. But they're people who know how to play the system. Well, poor people can't afford to play the system, even if they wanted to. It's expensive to get those kinds of lawyers and accountants. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is that we've seen a sort of glorification of extreme wealth in the last few years, probably since Reagan and Thatcher. The idea that accumulating wealth was a very good idea because somehow that benefited the rest of society. The money would trickle down. That was the idea. Rich people would get very rich and then they would employ less rich people and everyone would be better off. But in fact, that theory, which is called trickle down, manifestly doesn't work. Wealth actually trickles up. Money is magnetic. It attracts more money to it. So the wealthiest people become wealthier almost by default. They don't have to do much to become wealthy. Once you start getting a lot of money, it's very easy to get more.
So to that question, though, what do you see it doing for British society? Because, you could, for instance, just donate what you think is fair to the NHS, to the National Health Service, right?
Most of the people I know who are thinking like this already do donate a lot of money to various things like that. But if it isn't systemic, it doesn't make much difference. If you said to everybody in England, okay, we're not going to tax you anymore, but just put in whatever you want for education and put in whatever you want for defense, and I tell you, they wouldn't get funded very well. You need to make it such that everybody knows everybody's on the same program. I'm not going to pay my taxes so willingly if I know that lots of other people aren't paying any taxes. So the point of making it a legal event or a legal issue is to try to make sure that it's equalized across everybody.
Brian, we have to leave it there for now, but I do have one question. We only have about 20 seconds. Do you know if anyone at Downing Street is listening?
I think so, yes. I think everybody in Downing Street realizes there's a crisis with the polarization of wealth. So I think a lot of people are listening. This wouldn't be the most popular, even though it's quite a small suggestion, it wouldn't be the most popular suggestion. So it'll take some nerves for somebody to do it, to actually invoke it as a policy. But I hope somebody has got some nerves now.
It'll be interesting to see because, as you said, there are business people out there who are going to say it is going to hurt things like productivity or hurt Britain in general. Brian, we do have to leave it there, but I'm grateful to you, and we'll continue to see how this develops. Appreciate it.